Hello everyone, Burb here. Feel like doing a bit of a side quest today, so let's talk about the Umidol event and why it was always doomed to fail. If you do not know, the Umidol event started 3 days ago at time of recording and ends tomorrow. And our mission, which we were forced to do against our will, was to amass 2 trillion fans over the course of the entirety of the event and the entire global population. Japan had already done this. Japan had gotten 3 trillion fans, and they gave us a little bit of a challenge to beat their number. And I am here to say we were never going to reach this number. And you can say this is hindsight. You have the numbers now. I couldn't do this analysis without the numbers. So there is a little bit of math to back it up that I will get into. We had 4 days to complete this event over 2 trillion fans, meaning we needed 500 billion fans per day. And a lot of people were really stressed about this, and they were running run after run after run after run after run to make sure that their individual contribution was as high as possible. But the thing about group events is that individual contribution doesn't move the needle too much at the scale that we are talking about today. Besides, why would you stress about a number like 2 trillion? It's not even that big of a number, right? Here's why we were never going to reach it. And you can say, like I said, I talked about hindsight. Let's look at the UMA charts. The UMA charts are not the most accurate player trend things in the world, but you can double or triple these numbers and you will reach the same conclusion because this is an order of magnitude problem in that the final number is a lot bigger than any of the contributing numbers itself. So you're going to find we were very far off of this goal, required number of players to reach this goal. If you amass what I found across all platforms of concurrent monthly players, let's say, which is sort of an estimate about how the flat line of players over the course of the over the month, we get about 467,000 players. You could double this and you just have all these numbers. So 467,000 players, and you take the 2 trillion fans, you get about 4.28 million fans per player required, which to a lot of us doesn't seem like that much because it's about 1 or 2 track blazer runs per day. And there's a lot of reasons why we could not even get close to this number. You could just say, global population is just lazy. You could go into the fact that it started on a Monday instead of a weekend like Japan did, which means we are all employed and have jobs and can't play this game as much as Japan was able to play. You could just say Japan is just more dedicated than us and they're just better at Uma Musume. You could even say, in question, is there even 500k active players? And now we're entering the realm of conspiracy theories, because if there were 500,000 players playing this game, why are less than 4,000 subscribed? I think the answer is pretty simple. If you remember back in Champions Meeting, there was a sort of estimate that was thrown around of the 55-35-10 rule. I sort of subscribe to this. I think the numbers are a little bit different, but I'm going to use it for visualization purposes. 55% of the players are pure casual. They don't mind Champions Meeting. They don't play this game at an optimal level at all, and it's a level that we cannot even fathom, and that's perfectly fine. The people watching this video most likely are in the informed category of the 35% of players that actually go and, they consume content about this game. They play this game and kind of understand this game at a level that makes them passable. This includes deck strength because most players in this game do not even have an MLB SSR card that isn't welfare, right? And then finally, the 10% of people are the competitive people that are able to min-max, high roll, play this game consistently, do a lot of runs per day. I think these numbers are fairly accurate. You could go and move the needles a little bit left and right. I don't think it changes the numbers very much. So let's talk about the 55%. 55% of this player base probably isn't even playing Track Blazer. You see, if you remember what this game is a visual novel. And it's perfectly fine to just play this game and enjoy the stories and look and play the characters that you enjoy. Try to train them best you can, but don't stress about the mechanics of the game because, you're playing the events, you're playing the stories, and you're just going from there. You're not even getting max rewards. You wouldn't believe the number of people that don't have max welfare cards because they just don't play the events all the way through. They read the story and are done, right? So you have a 0 LB event card. Otherwise, if they're playing Track Blazer, they're most likely either struggling in it and failing runs, or you have to remember, Track Blazer was not intended originally to be the quote-unquote racing, like race maxing scenario. It just Japan figured out fairly quickly that that was the most optimal way of playing. If you look at what the actual requirements for Track Blazer is, it's 660 coins or 660 event points, right? All that is a G3 in or G2, sorry, in year 1 and a couple G1s every single year. And the game only prompts you when you're about to like fail. So if you actually go through and you don't race, you find that it prompts you like 5 turns out on year 1 and 15 turns out on year 2 until you race. Then it does it at 10 turns and 5 turns. And then senior year does the same thing. So most likely, the average player base that's just going and just, they're training, not really paying attention. They're probably just running a G2 or a G3 in year 1, a couple G2s or G3s in year 2, which don't even give that many fans, and then like a G1 at the end of the year. And the same thing for year 3. And you're probably reaching in the realm of like 150,000 fans on a good day. These are generous estimates. I mean, remember URA, a great run was like 300,000. A fan run would be like 500,000. But like when I'm considering a great run, remember, if you don't have cards, you're not necessarily going to be racing mini optional races. The game's going to pop it up and say, hey, here is your race you got to complete. And that's where I think most of the player base is. We need to make sure we do not lose that, hey, remember where we come from. That's where most people are at, because most players are newer, quote unquote, players. So some estimates. I think a generous estimate for these 55% of players is that they've contributed 1 million fans to this event over the course of the event. Now, this means that they have contributed 23.3% of their required fan goal. What does this affect for the rest of us? If 55% of people, or 55 people, if we take 100 people, have contributed 1 mil apiece, it means they've contributed 55 mil towards a goal of 428 mil if we break it down to 100 people for simplification reasons. Of course, 4.28 million fans per player means the goal needs to be 428 million. The rest of us, the 45%, have a burden of 373 million fans. If we divide it per person and we take the burden on equally, it means we need 8.28 million fans in order to reach the goal. And all of a sudden, it makes a lot more sense why we were not even close to reaching this goal. I'm going to take a water break. So, 2.07 million fans per day, it's still possible. And a lot of you may say, hey, that's not even that much. It's like a run or two of track, or it's 2 or 3 runs of Track Blazer per day. 2.07 million fans per day puts you in a very, very high percentile of players. And I know it may not seem like a lot, but we have data on this in clubs. 2 million fans per day, the line is roughly around the 350 to 360 mark for clans, because we can see how many clans per day people are doing. 2 million fans per day puts you about 363. Also, shout out if you're in one of these clans. I just took a screen cap, so hey, the odds are maybe one person is in one of these clans, and that's kind of cool to think about. 363 of these clubs with 30 players per club, because it averages out your fans over the course of the players. 10,890 players actually reach that mark if we consider all averages. That is not that many people, because if you take, and this is where if you double or triple the number of players, it doesn't really help you, it hurts you in the other way. Percentages wise, 10,890 players over the course of the 467,000 players that are actually have downloaded the game and are playing the game at least, only 2.3% of active players actually are reaching the goal levels required. And even if you're doing the original 500,000 per day, you'll find that still it's less than 20% of people are even getting close to the original amount, which would require 50th percentile at that point. So what did we do? Over the course of the 3 and a little bit that we've done, we've gotten 553 billion fans instead of the 2 trillion fans. We've reached 28% of the goal, and maybe it's closer to 35% of the goal by the time it's done. Either way, we were not even close. You double the number of players, we're still not even 70% of the way there. So that means on average, the average person did about 1.18 million per person so far. What I believe is the real number over the course of 55% is about 35 million of those, 35 of those 118 million if we expand it out to 100 players. mostly because it's 75% of the event. Plus, I don't think the 1 million per day is even, that's a generous estimate. But 35, let's say they do 35 million of the 118 required. That means our burden for the 45% is 83. We divide it over our 45 people. We get 1.84 million players and 1.84 million fans that have actually been completed by the 45%, which is about 2 to 3 Trackblazer runs. So if you really think about it, this is sort of your sanity check. 2 to 3 Trackblazer runs over 3 days seems very reasonable. I mean, I think the average player plays a run of Trackblazer a day if they're active, right? Remember, these are active players. They're only playing a single run, maybe 2 runs, right? So 1 run per day seems about average. I think average player did not change too much. So why did the 10% hardcore population not offset at all? First of all, this is a order of magnitude problem. So, it's the 10%'s only 10%. It's what they do is not going to move the needle as much as you think because there's such a small percentage of the population itself. Also, as far as I know, I've just sort of been inoculated into this community a little bit. The actual, I wouldn't say optimal way, and I do not subscribe to this. Please do not try to do this. The hardcore population cares a lot about champions meetings, and the people actually running, 25 to 30 runs per day, they're not completing their runs. They're going to first inspiration. They're going to second inspiration. They may be given up in summer. They may be given up at the start of the career if the career goes badly. Mostly because they have good parents and they don't need to run their borrows anyways. So even though they're running the 20 to 25 runs today, let's say, 4 champions meeting, 4 special events that are going on, they're high rolling. And then they press the door button if things start going wrong. So the actual number of runs completed where you get your rewards and you get your fans, they're not really coming from the competitive community as much as you think. There's going to be more, but it's not going to be a 25 to 1 ratio because of this. So what happened? They lowered the stakes to 500 billion, which is a very, very suspicious number considering we now have 562 billion. Here's some real life application that I hope gives you a little bit more knowledge to apply into real life outside of this game. I do this every once in a while. You see, whenever there's something that has limited time rewards that are significant in a community event, and there's not a very clear drop-off, look at each of the story events. If you look at the story events, 90% of the rewards are in the first half. Community events, which you have no agency in, let's say statistically you do not have any agency in because you are one person out of 467,000 people. If there are significant community rewards in any event across anything in life, this could be, I don't know, Chick-fil-A goes and opens a new restaurant and says, if there's 1,000 people that visit, you get a free chicken sandwich, right? They're going to give you that free chicken sandwich. They're not going to, because the outcry that happens if you do not get these significant rewards is much worse PR than them just saying, oh no, let's move the goalpost so it looks like we completed it. This was always going to be given to us. We were always going to get an SSR guaranteed race ticket as well as an MLB Smart Falcon Guts, because if there was a 0 LB Smart Falcon Guts in our accounts, it would just be a constant reminder of the bad PR that this event happened. So if there's events and there's significant things that are at the community level, you're just going to get them. So don't stress and overplay. Do your standard runs. Cygames, any other company in any other game, and a lot of companies that are not even in the video game business will just move the goalposts for you. Don't stress. Don't change your habits. Just play like normal. There's no reason to actually go and increase it unless you're having fun with the event itself. The second thing is marketing. What is the reason why this event was a thing? What were we doing when we were trying to amass fans? We were trying to play the game more. When we're playing the game more, that gives an increased it's more PR, but also for advertisers, having concurrent players increase for a time means that they are a premier product. And when they're a premier product, it adds and generates buzz, it adds and generates news, and it adds revenue because you are playing the game more, you're buying more stuff, and more people are reaching the game itself. If you're able to think about the reasons why things happen like this, like events happen, and outside of this game, advertisements. This is all what advertising is. If you're able to ask, why am I being shown this ad, right? Or if you're able to say, why would anybody buy this, right? Why would anyone buy this? You're not the target demographic. You're in the 45% of informed people. The marketing is for the people who just click. And unfortunately, critical thinking is at an all-time low. And if you critically think, you'll find a lot of other things in your life are going to work themselves out, at least the stuff that is in your control. So that is the most important thing that you can do, is just ask why. Okay? Not very, I guess, difficult, but, it's simple but hard to do, Speaking of marketing, I'm streaming tonight. I don't normally announce streams, but the trainer training event, which has been made by Psyduck, hosted by Psyduck rather, with a bunch of content creators like Victoria Frontier, Charles, and Red New, and all that. I'm not actively racing them, but I'm racing a lot of the people that they have coached. So, I have my UMA already set, luckily. I'm streaming at 8 p.m. If you wish to join, we're streaming at 8 p.m. The actual event will start at 9 p.m. I believe I'm allowed to actually watch my own races, and we may tune into other people's streams a little bit. I don't know exactly the rules on that, but at the very least, we will watch my own races when we are getting close to it. So I will go and leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come tune in tonight for trainer training. Like I said, I don't stream as often, but hopefully it's a fun event. So hope you enjoyed. Burb out.